So the first speaker I'd like to bring up is a welcome introduction by Karen Resnick of the New York City Department for Aging. Karen is the Deputy Commissioner of the New York City Department for Aging. She was appointed as the Deputy Commissioner for New York City in 2002. She brings a wealth of experience, 25 years of experience in the field of aging. And she's going to talk a little bit about the Department for Aging for those who might not know much about it. I hope that's not true. And also a little bit about the aging in our city. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'm Karen Resnick. I'm delighted to be here. I'm bringing you greetings on behalf of our commissioner at the Department for the Aging, Donna Corrado. And at this very time, cross town and north a little bit, we're having our Manhattan public hearing where seniors and providers can come out and talk to us about the direction they would like to see us taking in the future. So we should put this on the agenda for our annual plan hearing. So I am really delighted to be here. There are a great many staff in the room from the department who I noticed as I walked in, and some, like Robin, have been very helpful in pulling this together. So if DFTA staff can just raise their hands so people can see you. Thank you for being here, and I think we have some materials with us as well. So the topic that we're going to talk about today is all too familiar with us at the department, and there's no doubt that finding affordable and supportive housing as an older adult is difficult, especially for seniors living on limited incomes in an expensive city like New York. And unfortunately, that struggle is only made worse by the addition of Alzheimer's disease and other dementias. In New York City, there are currently 1.6 older New Yorkers, and we estimate that approximately, and this is a conservative estimate, 250,000 are currently living with some form of dementia in New York City. And there are at least 10 people that surround that person that are touched by the impact of their living with Alzheimer's disease. And we know as the numbers of older New Yorkers continue to grow, aging is one of the big risk factors for dementia and Alzheimer's. So we know that this is a growing problem. And certainly by 2030, when we're expecting the largest cohort of older adults living in New York City, that many of those are going to be living with Alzheimer and other dementias. On a personal level, I know this struggle intimately as a caregiver for my mom who has dementia. And although my mother is like other Alzheimer's patients in many ways, she differs in one significant way. She has the luxury to live in a comfortable home with attentive home health aides and a loving husband who still cares for her, and a supportive family. But on a professional level, I realize that isn't the case for hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers. The Department for the Aging receives countless calls from people seeking advice about housing options for loved ones in similar circumstances. And after exploring many avenues, the obvious solutions are often impersonal and institutional nursing homes or social adult day facilities that only offer brief respite. So when I was asked to speak at today's event, I welcome the opportunity. It's truly exciting to think that we may someday move to the model of dementia villages here. Any place that treats Alzheimer's patients in a holistic manner as real people with interests in art and music, nature, good food, and companionship, that's a winning combination. And we can all support that vision. I'm especially excited to hear Eloy van Hal speak about his pioneering approach to dementia care through Dementia Villages. These are family-oriented places where seniors not only live but thrive, and they are seen as more than their Alzheimer's diagnosis. It's fitting that the New York City Bar Association is helping to take the lead on this topic. So on behalf of the New York City Department for the Aging, I thank the Bar Association for once again serving as a valued advocate on behalf of the city's nearly 1.6 million older adults. And I have brought with me today, I'm not going to read it, you can put it up somewhere. We have a lovely congratulatory letter from our mayor, Bill de Blasio, commending you for today's conference.
I I think it should go to Mr. Van Hal.
Here you go.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. You're
What an honor.
welcome. And on another personal note, since I'm not steeped enough in all of this work during my work life and my home life, I went to the theater on Saturday night and saw a play with Elaine May called Waverly Square, and it is a complete, in-depth look at what it is to suffer from dementia and the impact on the family. So if you have some time and some money, it's in previews. It was really extraordinary. So it's quite topical. Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to introduce our moderator and my co-chair of this event, Britt Berner. As you know, Britt is a member of the Berner Law Group, and she kind of is the driving force behind the opening of their Manhattan office and has really developed a very successful practice here in New York City. She also is a super lawyer, and if anyone was looking at the New York Times yesterday, we'll see that she's one of our rising stars. In 2007, she was named Outstanding Woman of Law by Hofstra University, and she is the current chair of the New York City Bar Association's Legal Problem of the Elderly. She's also on the executive committee of the New York State Bar Association's Elder Law and Special Needs section, and chairs the legislation committee. Maybe she'll be helping us on changing some of the regulations that Mr. Van Hal has told us we need to look at to make this model work. So I give you Britt.
Raise this a little bit. Thank you, Judy. I want to start by just making one correction earlier. We wanted to make sure that we thank the Alzheimer's Foundation of America. Molly Fogel's here. She's the Director of Education and Social Services. Thank you. We're a member organization, or I guess that's what it's called, of theirs. And one of the things that's great that I tell a lot of clients about is they have a 24-hour hotline staffed by social workers. And so if you didn't get a chance to speak with Molly, please do. I also want to thank the other committees of the City Bar here that have helped sponsor this, the Housing and Urban Development Committee and the Disability Law Committee. I want to thank Judy and then also Margaret from Judy's office, as well as Michelle Biggert from my office. They did so much, including this beautiful pamphlet and everything else, so that was really great. And I want to thank all of you for coming. I think that if we are going to be able to shoot the bears, as you say, we are going to have to work together to do it, and I think the people in this room all work in a capacity that they can do that. So hopefully we can do it together. So now we're going to move on to the panelists. I just want to introduce our speakers. So first we have Rosemary Backer, who's the president of Age Friendly Design, Inc., and the author of the AARP Guide to Revitalizing Your Home. She's an accomplished speaker, author, and trainer in the field of dementia care. She's a certified interior designer, gerontologist, and dementia specialist. She has a design consulting firm in New York where she consults with facilities and older adults and their caregivers on redesigning the living space for enhanced functioning, memory, well-being, and safety. Next, we have Maria Alvarez. She's the executive director of the New York Statewide Senior Action Council. She advocates for an improved quality of life for New York State's elders and their families, economic security for elders, age-friendly banking, enacting the New York State Observation Status Law, the Safe Patient Handling Law, and refunding of EPIC and other important policies. And she has been working in this field for over 25 years. We have Timothy McManus, the Vice President of Catholic Charities Progress of People's Development Corporation. Timothy oversees the development of new affordable housing, including site acquisitions and financial structuring of existing Catholic Charities POP assets, overseeing the development, construction, and major rehabilitation of non-housing facilities for Catholic Charities in Brooklyn and Queens. We also have Kate Schneider, dementia specialist, Ultimate Care, management of Bristol Assisted Living, Reflections Programming Specialist. Bristol Assisted Living is also one of the sponsors here today. She develops, implements, and oversees new and innovative therapeutic goals-based recreational programs that emphasize resident independence, well-being, and social interaction. She trains the staff at the Bristol on the latest trends in dementia care, conducts sensitivity training of new hires, and is a certified dementia practitioner. And of course, we have Judith Grimaldi, who probably doesn't need an introduction to the people in this room, but Judy is an elder law attorney practicing mainly in Brooklyn, also in Manhattan. And Judy is one of the partners of Grimaldi and Young, and one of our hosts for today. Thank you.
So we're going to begin to address that question that we keep asking ourselves, can it be done in New York? And our panelists will be asked to kind of address that basic question across the board, and maybe we'll start with Rosemary. Is there, Eloy, is there a way that you want to handle this?
I think not. I want to hear your opinion.
Okay. So why don't we start to my right?
Good morning, everyone. Can we bring this concept of Dementia Village to New York? Can we bring the concept of person-centered care, a normal lifestyle? Because I just noticed I used the word Dementia Village, so I want to expand upon that now. So as we were talking this morning, how do we make it into a New York model where we tend not to build horizontally because we don't have land space, but we have more verticality in the city? So there are a few places in New York City now that are building around the neighborhood model, where you have several different floors, and there's a centralized living room, there are very few hallways, you come out into an open kitchen, there is smaller lifestyle communities, maybe 8 to 10 people. But I think one of the key concepts we really have to look at is going from being recipients of care to being participants. And so I think we really do need to look at culture change here if we're looking how do we take nursing homes where things are done for you, and now the aides are being asked to include the individuals in their own care. And so there are tons of bears and lions to shoot here. But I think the challenge will be for us the culture change, for one, the affordability. I think design-wise, there are a lot of challenges, but there are ways to make it work, and we'll talk about that later. But I think if we all look at and have the passion to answer the question, how do we want to live as we grow old? What if we have dementia? And what if our parents have dementia? How can we make it better? So if we're looking at creating an environment that may be several floors, part of the challenge we're going to have to look at is movement throughout the space. That's key because we're using elevators. And in the elevators, there can be a lot of crowding, a lot of wait time, et cetera. And I know I have several questions I will ask you later about people with dementia leaving an environment, leaving a front door. I love the idea of getting outside air. I think freedom of choice is critical, and I know you have higher agitation rates when you keep people cooped up. So how do we do that here in New York? So I'm going to, because we have the rest of the panel here, just say that we have to tease out what will really work for us, and we really do have to keep it affordable. Right now, the places that we do have, and my mom lived in one, my mom had Alzheimer's, and she lived in a dementia-specific assisted living here in New York City, and it was very good for her. But there were challenges to it, even though it was person-centered care, and we'll bring that up later on. So what's going to work for us here in an urban environment where we're probably going to have to build up? So the neighborhood model is going to work, but we're going to have to really tease it out, working with culture change.
Maria.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for having me on this panel. I really am interested in this new model, new to New York City and to New York State. But I think that in order to make it work, we would definitely have to make some changes to the system, to the healthcare system as we have it here in New York, and how people pay or access their healthcare. The other thing is that, and there are a number of things. The other thing is that I did have a question in terms of staffing for these residences, because right now in New York State and in the country, we're experiencing a very large workforce shortage when it comes to home care, workers, and it's for different reasons. But whether it's urban, suburban, or rural, whether, doesn't matter who's paying for it. It could be private pay, it could be Medicaid, it could be, there just are simply not enough people to take care for different reasons, right? Could be environmental, but it could also be wages. But the reality is that there are not enough people to take care of a population that in a couple of more years, in about 10 more years, is going to represent 20% of New York State and New York City. The other thing is, so we have a very low age dependency ratio, meaning that there are, the amount of people who will be able to care for people over 65 is starting to, the ratio is starting to go down. And by the year 2050, it'll be about 2 to 1 in New York State. The other thing is that I'm also interested in knowing in the Netherlands what the turnover rate for the staff is, just because it's very, it's very interesting to me. I'm very interested in these staffing processes. And in in the Netherlands, you have more of a homogeneic population. Here we have a lot of different cultures. So how would that also, when we're talking about different houses or different, areas, how, it would also have to find people representative of, culturally and linguistically of the people that they're serving. There are on the advocacy front, just so that you know, that here in New York State, right now, there is a push for single payer insurance, meaning that it would equalize the quality of care and the access to care that people would have. And just recently, the two sponsors on the state and the assembly level have agreed to include long-term care if it ever passed in New York State. So, which is it's something very good for people who have been trying to get long-term care included, because it's become increasingly expensive to access and to pay for as the population is aging and more people are needing that type of care. So I'll be interested to hearing your perspective.
Thank you. Tim.
Good morning, everyone. Being the real estate developer here, I feel like I might be the villain in the room,
But you work for a nonprofit.
But I do work for a nonprofit, and I'm taking a different tact here, where actually thinking, is the Dementia Village as a community, as a neighborhood concept possible in New York City? It was very easy for me when I saw this question just to say no. Here in New York, it's land values, density issues, zoning issues, really complicated. But I wanted to really try and see, as a developer for Catholic Charities, we are presented with unique opportunities throughout the city. And I should say I'm with Brooklyn and Queens, the Diocese of Brooklyn and Queens. Most people think Catholic Charities, Cardinal Dolan. He has Manhattan, the Bronx, Staten Island, and part of Westchester County, but we're Brooklyn and Queens. And we come across a lot of campus developments that might be, we've seen entire city blocks, come our way. There are challenges with acquiring those properties, but we've been successful in the past. And these are probably former orphanages, or even retirement homes for priests, nuns, or other orders, brothers. Those religious communities are shrinking, within the city and tend to be moving their efforts and their younger participants. Either the older people are moving into retirement homes of their own. Sisters of Mercy have recently disposed of a number of properties, and a lot of the nuns are now in their retirement home out in Long Island. And then the younger orders, members of the order, tend to focus on countries that have lower income, lower issues, bigger problems in the United States. So we've actually had a couple of these. They certainly, I think the Hogewick is a 5 acre approximately.
3.5.
3.5, which is not every block in New York City is the same size, but we looked at one that was just under 3.5 acres. So it's possible from a land perspective. What is challenging is the density. We typically don't see 160 units on 160 households on 3.5 acres is pretty challenging, but you do find that in an R2, an R3, and R4, type zoning classification. So there's an opportunity cost, of sacrificing potential income from a higher development, from more units on a property versus a lower density. In this, we've struggled, of late to acquire these properties as foreign interests have come into the New York City market and have certainly with a religious order disposing of their property, they're looking to continue a nonprofit, type use and serving the community, but they are weighing their own interests in financial gain versus serving a nonprofit, and we've had a 50-50 success rate in some of those battles of late. And the last, opportunity, is certainly a lot of public land. We've won a number of RFPs where we acquired a former maternity hospital, for $1, back in the late 90s, and we're able to convert that to residential, to low-income residential. Certainly your land cost, your acquisition cost is low, and then it's your retrofitting, and that could have been an opportunity with a lot of support from the state. And the last one I thought that was might be a really good opportunity to try to realize this is the Creedmoor Campus. I don't know if people are familiar with the Creedmoor Campus out in Belmont, Queens. I mean, it's certainly a publicly owned facility. If there was going to be an opportunity to get public participation, public support behind a demonstration concept, that would be, it's certainly, we actually have a very small parcel of senior housing on the Creedmoor campus, but it's a 50-acre property with lots of institutional buildings, but there certainly is a lot of excess land. And the one, I don't know if anyone, the one challenge in developing in the outer boroughs is always traffic generation and parking. So that would be something that we may not have thought about here in this conversation, but certainly would have come up when you. It's public land. It would have to go through the ULURP, the Unified Land Use Review process, which requires some degree of. It's very complicated. Some degree of community participation and approval with overrides by elected officials, to get through it. But I tried to find how to make that work, within the city before going right to a retrofit of an existing residence or institutional building.
And Kate. Hello, everybody. I think the Hogebank, am I saying it correctly, the Hogebank concept, I feel it might be easier to use this concept in New York City because we do build vertically. And then you would have, on the bottom floor, maybe have the stores that you can have that concept of the people going shopping, because it's a lifestyle that they're used to. They live in apartments, and you go outside, you grab the cab. So I think it would be an easy concept for New York City. Our culture, I know my son went to Amsterdam a couple of years ago, and he was so impressed. He's like, "Mom, everybody rides bikes there. No one uses the car." on Long Island, you know, we get in the car. We don't ride our bikes so much, and to go outside in the cold, I know my residents don't want to get on the bus. They, oh, it's too cold, we're not going. If it's raining, we're not going. So to build a village where we would only use it maybe for 3 months of the year might be a barrier. How could we get around that barrier? There's definitely ways to do that. Maybe a way that we could use the store concept in the courtyard, but then also in the winter months, is there access to it from the inside? So there's definitely ways. It's a beautiful concept, and I think, you know, with money, you can do anything. My questions are too, and a lot of it's been discussed already. Regulations are so tough. We had a beautiful kitchen in one of our communities with an oven, and we used it all the time. And the fire marshal said, nope, can't have that. So that's something we would definitely have to, one of those bears we have to address. Staffing, just the logistics of staffing, how to, you know, I had a question on how does the members, the people that live there, how do they get to one club to another? How do you address higher acuity needs? So logistics and staffing, and again, being that staffing is so difficult right now. And maybe even to dream a little bit and look into technology. How could we use, you know, advanced technology, maybe to take a little bit of the heat off the staff? And how can that make it easier for us to provide supervision? So a couple of things we should think about.
Game to address some of these questions?
Yes, okay.
And maybe each other could address some of these questions.
So first, the Hoogwijk is not the village. We use the term Dementia Village, but the Hoogwijk concept is first and for all an integral model for normal life for people. So it's not the building, it's not the walls, it's not the bricks, it's the way we look at people living with dementia. And a normal life. And for a normal life, you need a recognizable environment and a human scale. So you don't need a whole new neighborhood. First, you must start tomorrow with this vision, this approach, this vision, a normal life also for the people living with dementia, or a more normal life. What kind of steps can you take? You must first embrace this vision and also the good parts of the greenhouse model, the plane tree concepts that will look at people living with dementia as human beings. So don't look at buildings, don't look at New York. I think that also the people in New York and the different kind of cultures also want a normal life. And other things are, and not to start like this are, I would say, more or less maybe bad excuses. Not to want to change. It needs a change, it needs another mindset. And some of the panelists did a very human thing, and they start talking about affordable and budget and money first, instead of can we embrace this more human approach and then look what is possible, what's achievable at this moment, and be creative. And a mistake made quite often is that they say, oh, we cannot afford it because it's too costly, the staffing. There are many problems. I never said this morning that it's easy to change. Change is very difficult for people, a new mindset, and we accept that this is, we accept the traditional models. We accepted the traditional models in our society until I think the new generation, like you and our children, who will not accept that we are sort of stored away somewhere at a ward. We will not accept it anymore. So we can start with a change now, and we have to start with a vision, a new view on people living with dementia right now, tomorrow. And then we have to explore what is possible. And this model costs exactly the same in the Netherlands, so don't look at the facts and the numbers and the costs in the Netherlands. It's totally different. The society is totally different, but the people living with dementia here have the same disease. So in the Netherlands, we do this with the same amount of money as my colleagues in the Netherlands who say we cannot afford the neighborhood model, the Hoogwijk model, it costs too much. They cannot afford it because they don't go the whole way. They don't go for the integral model. They see that cooking with restaurants is really nice, so they create a kitchen, but they don't skip their institutionalized kitchen, so they have both. They see that doing the laundry with restaurants is very helpful for many people, so they do the personal belongings at home, and it's also the easiest part. And one of the big problems is that everything got lost at the cleaning company, so that's nice, solve that problem, but they still outsource the bed sheets. So you have two systems. If you don't go for the integral model, it costs more, and maybe you still can afford it here, because
I'd like to tell you that the amount that you quoted as your euro rate, our MLT, we have a managed care system in funding nursing homes. It's almost equivalent. Most of the nursing homes at the managed care rate are being reimbursed at about $8,000 a month.
But
So
including the real estate?
that's what they get per person that they serve. It's a capitated rate.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
but
it might be equivalent.
So I would advise not to start with the money and the budget and it's affordable, but with the vision and the approach and what can we change tomorrow? And then you will see, and I'm convinced that all over the world, you can afford this model if you change your existing, West European countries and Western countries can afford this model because others are proving it in the world with a different financial system, can afford it because you can skip certain elements, less practitioners. You need the knowledge, but you have less physicians, less practitioners, and that's how you can afford more staffing in the houses, and you can afford smaller groups, for example. So it's an integral model, but start with the vision, start with the approach, and then look at what's possible. If you are living in a multi-story building, you can ask a volunteer probably to be the lift boy or a lift girl, so to guide them through the building. So it's all solvable. Be creative. And you can ask the fire responsible person where in the regulations you can see that cooking is here not allowed. Ask the questions. And so you need to have, if you are a guy, balls. Say, no, I'm not going to do this. I keep my kitchen. And if you are a woman, I don't know what you say, but so don't say immediately, okay, that guy is saying this, or the inspector is saying that, and then it's a reason not to act. So there are many of these elements, and we have to take everybody on a path. So we have to explain the society, all the stakeholders, what we are going to do, what kind of vision we have, what kind of steps we are going to take in the future. So it's a long way, but you can start with this tomorrow if you start with vision and approach and with the same budget you have nowadays. We had no money and we just started. We used second-hand furniture. We created some little things to create the first step forward in normalizing, and everybody became enthusiastic, and so you can take everybody with you, the people who believe, don't invest in the people who don't believe in you, but take the others with you on the path, and that's interesting. Today, with all the stakeholders, you need to select the stakeholders who believe and try to make steps forward. And then it's absolutely doable. It's doable, but it's not easy, because you have to change the mindset of many people, and that's a difficult thing to do. So about the workforce, also in the Netherlands, we have a huge problem finding the right care workers. So that's the same in every Western country, almost every Western country. Maybe not in Italy because there's a lot of unemployment, but it's a problem you have to deal with. And not every care worker likes this concept. Not every care worker who starts in the Hoogwijk is enthusiastic or is able to embrace the whole vision and being responsible, if we talk about care workers, responsible for 6 or 7 restaurants all day and taking the responsibility. So we have 15% of the people will leave every year. The turnover is, I think, quite similar in the Netherlands. So, but all the new people who come in, and I had some new students, they were doing a project and I guided them around, they were flabbergasted that this existed in the Netherlands. So they were from The Hague, so that's an hour traveling, and that's too much, but they want to start tomorrow. So we must also still tell in the Netherlands what we are doing to get the right staff on board. And maybe now we must change also regulations in the Netherlands. We say we have a level 3, well-trained care worker, but do we need this kind of education level? Can we also do with a lower, if we do some specialized training for this model? Why can I give my mom medication at home, but is it not allowed for me to give medication to a resident if I know who the person is in front of me? So why not? Safety, security, in this risk-averse society, we create our own problems. So we must deal and talk about the certain risks of normal life. And these are all lawyers. So don't sue immediately, but look at the risks of daily life and accept it and stop suing. And that's also not easy. It's also, so look at the broader picture and quality of life, and there are certain risks. I came here with Delta Airlines, so I took the risk to step into a plane. We didn't crash. It was the most bumpiest international flight I ever had, but we survived. So yeah. I took the risk to come here. So it is a risk you take. And also at Schiphol Airport, sadly, there will be an attack in the future. Hopefully not, but there will be. So, but that's a risk you take in daily life, and that's also what you do when you live with Alzheimer or dementia. And so this kind of discussions we have to do in congresses like this and events and with everybody else and with the families and so to make the step, but we must focus first on vision, quality of life, and then about how can we afford this. But I'm sure that in a rich country, in every rich country, we can afford this model.
So Maria, if the staffing is an issue, do you have any creative solutions you'd put on the table?
Well, we have a coalition throughout the state with about 39 counties and over 150 people who work with this seniors. And you know, right now what we're finding is there are a couple of things. One is the wages. And unfortunately, we have this new fast food wage, which means that people who are working at fast food restaurants are going to be making more money than somebody who works as a home care worker. So then, you know, why would you? And neither of them is a living wage, so it's not that the other one is good either. But the problem is that then, you know, you'll find people who will say, well, I don't want to lose my benefits. You know, I need my benefits and I have to live for working for a subpar conditions and subpar, you know, wage. But also, so what we're trying to do is look for the government to give us some sort of innovative funding that would then where we would be able to institute different you know, programs such as, you know, one of the big things is transportation for a home care worker to get to their place. And I'm talking a lot of urban and suburban places, or suburban and rural places. You know, see if we can get some type of transportation company to get them to go. You know, loan forgiveness. For sometimes education, or for maybe not for them, but for their children, because there are different reasons why people are not entering this type of work, but also geriatric practice. You know, doctors and things like that. It's a very low percentage. People don't want to serve seniors. It's not glamorous. It doesn't pay.
It's not sexy.
It's not sexy.
Yeah. So that's what you need to change. So it's
right. Because when you think about it, when you think about it, 60 people 65 and over consume 2/3 of healthcare in this country. So it has to be, you know, from an infrastructural place, we have to have this type of of change. I had a question. What role do family councils play? Family or relative, input into your communities?
So what we say is that as a family member in the former life of the resident, you were the informal caregiver, looking after mom. And now we say, please take your family role again. So come as often as you want, come with your grandchildren, come with the children, mingle, do the things, make the coffee, cook in the house, so be part of that life of mom or dad now in the Hogeweg. So that's what we must explain. But also there's a challenge for us, because for some people, they are happy to drop off mom,
Right.
and so now it's your problem. So that happens also. So we must explain, educate family in family meetings, take the role, and at the other side, also caregivers to let the family take their own role. So, because it's sort of your household, no, it's not, but somebody's in your kitchen, yes, the family member who makes the coffee. So you see different atmospheres and cooperation in the different houses. There are good, better teams and houses than others. There are differences, yes, so we must coach and work on that. Also educate the family, but come as often as you want and bring everybody with you.
And just one last comment I wanted to make about how important an idea this is because the Alzheimer's Association, who we have a lot to thank for, just came out with this report, and it shows that 48% of the caregivers who provide older adults, for some is either for Alzheimer's or dementia. They tend to be people who are poor, $50,000 or less income, and women. And these are all the people who are living longer. So something like this that could be, and they give a lot of their own money and resources to the care of their loved ones. So something like this would really help shift the economic insecurity that we're facing for the future. Right now in New York State, 59% of senior households do not make ends meet. So as a result of, if we're able to offload some of these resources onto this system, it would be a huge boon for the population that's coming up.
I would just like to say that I think if we make our living environments for people with dementia vital, where they're treated with respect, family members will come, we'll get more volunteers to come, and we see that we'll start making partnerships with schools, bringing in musicians and dancers and so on. But if we feel like they're people with diseases and they're to be put aside and we do for them, they're going to be seen as the problem, more work, etc. But if we see them as that there's still a spark of life there, and part of what we're doing is bringing it out in them, then we're going to create a vital society. People will come.
Totally agree, Rosemary. This is the way we have to think and to go to, not looking at it as a problem, but it's the reality, and how can we work more on an inclusive society, dementia-friendly, etc.
If I may, I have an urban planning background. I have a master's of city and regional planning from Rutgers University, and we talked a lot about the health benefits of living in a walkable community. People tend to know their neighbors; they're more politically engaged. And the plight of America today is we pretty much walk out our door, get in a car, drive to work, and we sit at our desk all day, and the health implications that comes with it. So I know another nonprofit that we belong to, an advocacy group, just finished a study where within their senior residence buildings they provide preventative health care. It's certainly not a walkable, but it's a step. And they were able to show that just providing preventative health care to these residents reduced, the cost to Medicaid by 30%. It reduced the number of trips to the emergency room by a significant percentage. It's an idea in the urban planning, environmental determinism, really using the built design to solve some social and physical ills. And the concept here, while it's challenging, if you could put, a rationale together, and how this is going to improve and save, other systems. There's an argument to be made and to build some support behind an initiative like this.
So I totally agree with you and Rosemary. So I don't want to disappoint you, but the Hogewijk is not the solution for tomorrow. So it's the approach, the way we think about people living with dementia, and all the sides, we must work towards a more dementia-friendly society, and maybe in the future we have certain secured areas where people still are living in a normal environment and not locked up. But it's a much broader picture that dementia is a part of normal life for everybody in the future. Since 5 years in the Netherlands, we talk much more about dementia than we did over the last 20 years, because it's now on the agenda, and there are many other aspects we need to influence, and not only build a dementia-friendly neighborhood a la the Hogewijk, but we must influence the society to look at a different way, not as a problem, but as a future with people with abilities for living with dementia for people. So that's the solution. So the solution is much broader than only the retrofit. That's a good start for the mindset also of existing buildings and facilities, maybe some new ones, but it's a much broader picture we need to look at.
Kate, I was listening to your comment about, the use of outdoors and that the residents are resistant when it's cold. I was in Hogewijk when it was cold, and it didn't seem to stop people from going out. So I'd love to hear what you think might get people to go outside, and then what you did to help people be encouraged to go outside.
Well, our recreation department, during the warm months and that spring, summer, fall, it's an opportunity to be outside has to be every day. So some residents will go outside, absolutely, but once that snow or that rain hits, they're very reticent to go out. So each community does have a bus, so we will take them out on the bus, and cultural events, plays, Broadway. We do things like that. Something as simple as going to the 99-cent store or the supermarket. That's definitely, our AL side is more inclined to go out. Our people that live with dementia, we encourage, absolutely, but we find that they're very reticent to go out when it's, I think sometimes it's also like a fear. If it's snow or sleet outside, they're afraid.
So, but if it's snowing in the Netherlands, we are afraid of 2 centimeters already, and in your country, I think here in New York, it starts maybe with 10. Yeah. In Saskatoon, it starts with a meter. Yeah. So it's also, what are you used to handle? And when it's really dangerous or snowy, it's nice to talk and say, let's stay inside, because it's too cold outside.
We'll bring the snow inside, and we'll have, we'll make snowmen inside. I mean, we try everything.
But we saw, and also in the hardest winters we had in the Netherlands, when we opened the Hogewijk in 2008, with 10 centimeters, people were walking outside, residents were walking outside within 30 minutes. Mm-hmm. After we cleared the pathway, it was still slippery, and residents were walking outside, experiencing the winter. Mm-hmm. So it's a normal part of life, mm-hmm. and getting wet also. And what we see in the winter, that people sit outside in the sun, the fresh air, and complaining about the weather, it's all part of normal life. So don't take it. My mother-in-law is never coming outside. But my mother is coming outside a lot. She walks every day. Mm-hmm. So it is an individual choice. So we don't mm-hmm. push people outside, mm-hmm. but you have the possibility to make that individual choice. Mm-hmm. And many people are able to do that. And you need your coat. Yes, you need your coat. And maybe you forget your coat. And then we are here, we all, not only the caregiver at that house, but also the other people outside, to look after the residents. Mm-hmm. And that's very normal, and that's what most of the people want. And if you want to stay inside, you have the choice to stay inside. Mm-hmm.
I'm curious of the percentage of people who actually will go outside on their own. I know they did a little pilot study of an assisted living for people with dementia in Colorado, and they found by unlocking the doors, a lot of the residents wouldn't go outside, but they just wanted to know they could get outside. Because I know some of us are wondering, okay, well, what if there isn't enough staff around and they do go outside and they sit on a hot bench for 2 hours and get terrible sunburn or something. But do they self-regulate, knowing that I may get lost, I'm uncomfortable, maybe I'll wait for someone to go with me, or do you have half the people going out on their own?
People with dementia are still able to do a lot of things. And maybe some you must support. You don't take over their life, but if you know that they like to go outside, you can also offer the choice to go for a walk and maybe help with the coat. But most of the people make that decision by themselves. And maybe they're not aware of all the risks. So some people get wet because they forget their coat, but that are the exceptions. So with 4 more houses, we have now 170 residents, 169. You see in October, and it's the hottest October ever in the Netherlands, that the theater square is full of people in October. Many people, they make their individual choice to go out for a walk, but if you need groceries and you're invited to go with the care worker to the shop, you are also outside. If you are a member of a club, somebody, mostly a volunteer or the club leader, will pick you up at home, and you have that walk and that outdoor experience because everything is outdoors. And that's normal. And when it's raining, we all complain about the rain, and maybe we wait until it's over, and otherwise you use an umbrella or a raincoat, and it's also part of a normal day experience. So many people come outside when they go to an event or club, and guess 40, maybe 50%, but it's just a wild guess, and makes that individual choice to go out for a walk. And on a beautiful day, not too hot, 80% is outside. And some residents sit outside every day with their magazine and observing other people, all individual choices. So we cannot decide for the individual resident. You must give them the opportunity to make that decision. And if 80% is sitting inside, which is not true, but then it's still good because people make the decision to stay inside.
May I tell a story? I visited the village and the neighborhood, and when we were exiting, there were, as Eloy described, there were people milling around, some with walkers, some in wheelchairs. And so we were a group of, how many were we, Jerry? Maybe 15? We were 20. We got to the only locked door to go out. And it's like an apartment building foyer with a glass door, an entryway, and then a second glass door. So we exited the first glass door, and we turned around and looked, and next to me was a woman in with a walker, all bundled up, ready to go out, and someone was with another group. They just exited with us. The staff was alert and didn't open the second door, and suddenly, and we were told, just wait a minute, because we had some escape. I think they teasing. We called them escapees, but I don't know what you would have called them.
They wanted to socialize with you.
Yes, they were coming with us. They were part of our group. The next thing that happened to me was the most remarkable. The people who got them to return back into the town square was not Eloy, was not an executive director, was not a security guard. It was the 2 waitresses from the restaurant. They were cleaning up. It was later in the day, and the restaurant was sort of closing. They were cleaning up, and they noticed. And those are the 2 people that came out and rescued the 2 elderly people who were ready to come out with us. To me, that showed that the entire staff knew the mission, that they were all part of the community. It wasn't my job, I'm cleaning up the restaurant. I saw a need, they ran out. And it was, to me, the most remarkable part. We had to leave through the garage because it was just getting they were too excited about this group and wanted to come with us, so we exited through the garage and it was just fine. But to me, the risk was handled. There were no escapees, as we called them. They were there. Everybody knew what their job, and they did it well. And it was the restaurant employees who were the first ones on the job because they could see them out the window. It was remarkable.
Thank you.
Can I just tell another quick story?
Sure.
If you're at it. I do remember that, but another moment, it was during lunch that really stuck in my mind. windows overlooking the courtyard that you saw on the PowerPoint slide. And I remember this gentleman that was raking leaves. It was 50-ish. I think it might have been, it was middle of November. It might have been raining. I remember it was really windy too. But of course, I didn't wear a jacket. So, it was cold.
Macho man.
But the gentleman was just raking leaves and clearly a resident with advanced dementia. No one was around him. No caregivers were, and he just had he had a broom, and for 20 minutes during lunch, which is delicious lunch, by the way, I became mesmerized by this gentleman, just pushing the leaves back and forth like he was in his own home, just pushing the leaves, something he's probably always done. And I work in South Jersey, and I don't know of any dementia community in South Jersey where my clients and the seniors can experience such. And I was just fascinated by this gentleman. He was accomplishing nothing and accomplishing everything simultaneously. It was beautiful to watch him. So thank you, Eloy.
Thank you.
Yeah. That's kind of the spirit that when Eloy talks about the vision or the normal life, so it isn't the buildings, although we need the buildings, Tim. We need you to figure that one out. But it's really the ability to live that normal life. I went shopping with, I don't wonder if it was Mr. A, but I went shopping with someone, and he was from the traditional house, and I remember, he put 4 quarts of milk in the wagon. And no one said anything. No one said, no, we don't need 4 quarts of milk. We only need 1, or we only need 2. When he got to the counter, the cashier, again, not the caregiver staff, but the cashier just smiled at him, took the 4 quarts, put 2 aside, and left him with 2. No fuss, no chastising him, no telling him, no, you don't need it. It was just normal life.
But with others, hopefully, they discuss, do we need 4, do we need 2? So they're all individual.
They might have been saying that in Dutch, and I had no idea.
Because, so it's not that we all guide everything. So the discussion in the supermarket, do we need 4, 2, or 1, is an important normal discussion. Mm-hmm. So it's not all organized and takeaway, and so it's good that you come, book a tour, and you can experience yourself and talk this kind of stories. I see hands.
Oh, yes, we're welcome questions.
And I want to applaud for you because that's exactly what we need to do. Thank you.
Can
we
I
have a
just
mic.
follow up on that comment? Sure. Yeah. Well, I don't specifically focus on seniors with dementia. You know, we build housing, affordable housing for seniors. You know, we have just shy of 4,000 units, and it'll take a senior 7 to 10 years on our wait list to find an apartment. Oof. I mean, we've been, it's a really big issue that we've been trying to work on and raise awareness. I mean, we participated again with our senior advocacy group of affordable housing providers. We surveyed the wait lists at 26,000 apartments, and it was over 250,000 people waiting to just for low-income senior housing. I mean, it's an enormous. Providing appropriate housing for seniors is an enormous problem here in the city, and we have been successful on a number of issues. I personally, advocated to City Council on the new zoning change, the ZQA zoning for quality and affordability that reduced the parking requirements at senior housing within a half a mile of a subway, which opened up quite a few development sites for us, moving forward, as well as a few other initiatives we've taken that we've been very successful. The council members, really find they can get behind supporting affordable housing, senior housing, because they recognize it's a huge need.
If I could add too.
Yeah.
Sorry. I know some communities have dementia-friendly stores where they have an emblem on the window showing that when somebody comes in shopping that this is a store that is familiar with people living with dementia and how to talk and live in the moment with them. So maybe if, senior housing can work in conjunction with the local Alzheimer's associations, AFAs, if we could, bring that program to be a little bit more common, that might be a way to work with that.
Wow, that's a good one.
So, my question is, some of this makes me think about the deinstitutionalization issues that we've had with mental health and with people with developmental disabilities. How much of what you are working with can learn from the mistakes of those processes?
I think in the Netherlands we learned from them. Maybe we were partly inspired by those models where people went with learning disabilities to the normal community again, and they came back on campuses, and so we learned from them. But if you look at the pillars, you see that this is what most of the people want. They want a favorable surrounding. They want pleasures in life. They want to live with like-minded people. They want to make their own choices, and so on. So it's quality of life. So it's broader. It's not only for people living with dementia. It's not only for aged people. It is essential for everyone, and we must work on our society because there are more and more aged people in our societies. How to deal with that? How to get everybody involved? And so we must work on concepts. But they are partly maybe a solution, and we must work on for other groups also, and we must integrate it because we are now living in a too much individualized society, I think. So, and that's the story of you also. So we must look at the whole picture, not as a problem, but as a challenge for the future. I think they can live, if you build something new, also together in facilities like this, in neighborhoods like this, but also with young people. So and then you come to my Bryant Park dream, where everybody lives together and use the amenities we develop. A restaurant is used by others and people from outside, but why don't we use the normal restaurant in the facility or the library in the facility? And how we look after people with dementia and train the staff in the normal supermarket how to deal with people. And at the end, at the technology we have nowadays, not to solve all the issues, but some of the technologies will make it possible to live longer in your own apartment or to be part of the society, so we know where you are because you have a GPS tracker and you will listen to Siri who's telling you to go left instead of right. And so the taxi driver will know, because it's an Uber driver, that you are far away from home and will offer you a free ride or a paid ride home. And so that's how we can use the modern technology also to create a new society. So not only dementia villages or new neighborhoods, in the end, we must work on the broader society and integrate this. And where it ends, I don't know, but for now, we need secured, safe, normal environments also for people who need nursing long-term care. And you can maybe find some money because too much people are staying in a hospital ward, and that costs double the cost of the long-term care facility. So it's also often a problem in the societies. Also in Canada, I'm not sure in New York area here, but in Canada, too many people are in a hospital.
Really?
So you can save a lot, but you have a big problem in the wrong bed problem. People stay in the wrong bed. So there's money enough, I would say, almost.
Hi, I'm Margaret Baker. I founded a company a year ago called Artists Visiting Elders. And we are creative people who have improv experiences. Most of us are actors. Most of you who work with dementia know that this is improv at its best, and you have to be fully present and leave yourself alone. These are all things we learn in an acting class. So for anyone that has the time or inclination, I would really encourage you to take a basic improv class here in the city. We also learn our clients. You know, like you've said, I mean, everything you guys have spoken about is so, like, spot on. A lot of it is common sense. It's not all about the building. It's not about the building. We start with the person. Just like he's been saying, our program is tailor-made for our person. We learn our person. We study our person, not like a specimen, like a person. One of my biggest clients is an executive. When we need to make a decision, we go in his office. He sits in his chair as the executive. It's role-playing, guys. This is a role-playing exercise, and you have to constantly be on your feet and be ready to adapt. My question for you on the adapting side is, I'm accustomed to, also everyone on my team has personal experience with dementia. We've all lost a loved one to dementia. In my family, we've had many people with dementia. My mom's in hospice and done full-time care. My sister's a PA. I'm just an actress and an artsy-fartsy, but I've learned that all of my skills are perfectly tailored for this kind of work. My client was not ready for a nurse. When he needed help, and I couldn't be that full-time caregiver anymore, but he wasn't yet ready for a nurse. I didn't know he wasn't ready for a nurse. So I hired a nurse. She was right out of Central Casting, you know, cookie cutter, lovely lady, but she wouldn't sit with him and engage in conversation. My clients are highly intellectual people. They need that constant communication and stimulation. She saw herself as beneath him. He didn't see that. I had a conversation with her. You speak 2 languages, he only speaks 1. You know, can you try and share that with him? So I guess my question to you is on that point, and taking off that tangent, when you are negotiating with the person with dementia, and you know they need that nudge, but you don't want to cause stress. You don't want to create more silent strokes or plaque on the brain, or you know, you want to fire those synapses in a gentle, non-stressful way. For example, getting him to a PT session that he's really...
What's a PT session?
Physical therapy. Oh. He loves his yoga. This is his yoga teacher. He lives for yoga. At first, he thought it was a hippy-dippy California thing, you know. He's an executive. It wasn't part of his psyche. He does it 2 hours a day, 5 days a week. Sound touch healing, Reiki, yoga. He lives for yoga. So that's really exciting to see a change, because it shows that you can actually teach an old dog new tricks. He is more engaged in learning than I think he has been in most of his life. He was an executive. He was good at business. he's probably also on the spectrum, so emotionally he was in a different place. So I struggle with when to push and when to pull back, because I don't want to cause stress.
So you must observe and use all the techniques that are available. So maybe you read the article of in the New Yorker. I was not so happy because she's talking about lying and cheating and discusses, are we cheating? Every individual needs an individual approach. We are not letting people do things they don't want to do, but some people need help and support, and for that you need their background, what's helpful for this individual person. So not the one-size-fits-all approach. And for some people you say, today it's Monday, because it's helpful to know it's Monday and the rhythm of the week, and on Monday I do this. And for others, you don't say, no, it's not Monday, it's not Sunday today. But if somebody wants to go to church, you can say, it's Monday today. So a different approach per person, all the available techniques we developed over the years. So that's what you need to use. So for a CEO, maybe it helps if he has to make a decision to go to his office, if you are there. And for others, it will not be helpful. So use all the different techniques that are already known in dementia care. And what I didn't like is the discussion about lying. People with dementia have a certain problem, and so you must use the right approach for that individual person. And it's not helpful to say to a person at the door that if she's telling that she needs to go out for children because they are coming out of school, that you say, oh, your children passed away already, because that's the reality. That's not helpful. So then you distract, or you use another technique, or you go for a cup of coffee or walk, or so the individual. And you need different people with different skills. And maybe in the example you mentioned, the waitress of the restaurant had a better connection than the other person who was available at that moment. Or when she walked around, she observed, hey, maybe I can assist, and I know that person very well, and she listens to me, and then you help. So that's the way we need to support the residents, not take over their lives, but support them to continue and do as much as possible what they can do.
Hi, a question for Mr. Van Hal, if I pronounced your name correctly.
You can say Eloy, maybe that's
Eloy,
easier.
Thank you, that's easier. Two connected questions. The first is, to what extent do you think that the possibility for change in the culture of institutional long-term care facilities is dependent on sort of exceptional, unusual leadership within those organizations? I mean, that's sort of my principal concern, hearing about all these wonderful ideas, because if it is largely dependent on that, then that, of course, limits the extent to which things will change. And then connected to that is, to what extent can people who are not within the for want of a better way to put it, institutional care industry, like me as a lawyer in Brit's committee, to what extent are people outside of that industry able to help to affect this kind of change? For example, in the Netherlands, if you talk to people and they say, this sounds great, but I don't know what to do to help bring this about, what do you tell them, and what do they do, and does it work?
And I would say, Eloy, after you answer, I'd love to hear the answer from the whole panel on what you think our next step should be.
Shall I start?
You could start, yeah.
So, sadly, I think you pushed your finger on a delicate point. You need leaders for the change. So what I see now, I had the first leaders, or the examples, that are the dedicated leaders who have balls, although many women were involved, who will go for it. So you need the leadership, because also in the Netherlands, there's not a positive stimuli to change. So the more old-fashioned leaders will not change unless they are forced to change, and then they are unable to guide the transition or the deinstitutionalization. So you need the leaders, and the first are now leading, and the others are after that following. That's what I expect. And the pressure from the society will be too high, and then they will change. With the funding system in the Netherlands, for example, you will see that with the funding system, there's not a reason, not for many providers a reason to change, because it's quite difficult to implement a new model or a new approach, or to change the mindset of stakeholders and family. Why should I change if everybody is satisfied with a 7 on a 10-point scale from 10 is excellent? Why should I change? And so I think that the new clients, the new family members will ask and demand for the change. I think it's very important that other people, everybody, starts the discussion about what we are discussing here, what's the human side of what we are doing, ask questions about the regulations, discuss with the family members, so create awareness on every level and every part of what we are talking about, the social part, the legal part. So you must talk about this and spread the word and be a missionary like I am. I feel a little like a mission to explain that we must change in the world the way we look at elderly, the way we look at human beings, and elderly living with dementia at first. So talk about it and look at how you can help. I have not the exact answer, but how you can help and discuss with the legal part, and maybe you can change a little step, but because we have to take little steps forward.
So I think it's important to start where you are in life, wherever that is. And 12 years ago, I started with my mother having Alzheimer's, and she could no longer live alone. So we were lucky at the time to have a person-centered assisted living for people with dementia just opening in Manhattan. My mother got in, and I started a family council there. Led it for 5.5 years because there were person-centered issues that sounded good on paper but weren't really being enacted. So we got the families together, we got the management together, we put on actually a family-sponsored staff holiday party with presents. We brought them the Caribbean food that they liked. We showed appreciation. We had all members of the residents come down. So we showed staff they're doing great work. The residents were there to see the staff being honored. We were all having a party. But we also addressed design issues there too, like there's not enough light. You know, somebody fell by this place here, we need to up the wattage, it's very dark here. Or we had certain issues with polished marble flooring and slipping. And so we wanted to not just complain, but we wanted to get together, look at what was happening, and then make requests and bring management into the families. And on the whole, it worked out well, but it was a lot of work. And, you know, so you have to have a passion for it. So I'm a gerontologist and I'm an interior designer and had a mom with Alzheimer's, so I had the passion for it. So we asked for things, short little tiny story. My mother is in her room, private room. I come in on a very hot day in August. The temperature in the room is about 108 degrees, very hot day. And I go to the head nurse who was visiting that floor and I said, "This is really hot. I don't understand why my mother's room is so hot." And she said, "Well, you know, your mother has Alzheimer's and she's going to need a higher level of care because she can no longer turn her AC on her own." So I went over to the AC control and I see that there's this tiny little gold font with on and off on a gold background, and I couldn't even see how to turn it. So I went home, got computer labels, did color contrasting, large on and off, black type on a white background. Voila, my mother could use it and could self-use it for 2 more years. So what was blamed on Alzheimer's, part of poor design, and it's just bad ergonomic design. But I do remember my mother's dementia did not allow her to tell me what the problem was, but as soon as I fixed it and I said, "Mom, can you turn the AC on for me?" She looked at it, she knew exactly what to do, and these are her exact words: "Why do they do that? Why do they make your brain work so hard?" So again, wherever you are, we want to be asking for accessible environments that are wheelchair and walker friendly, that are personalized, that have queuing built into the environment, that make you feel good to be in the space.
Thank you.
Can I speak to that, or?
Yeah. Go ahead. Okay, sure, go ahead.
You know, I looked at the 6 pillars of your, I guess, hug away concept. Favorable surroundings. I come from a very institutionalized nursing home background and then came to work with the Bristol and was blown away by how beautiful the surroundings are, favorable. Can we make them a little bit more personal? Yeah, absolutely. But the home-like setting, even the licensing to be able to take care of people with dementia, we have special licensing, enhanced licensing, people with special needs. So it is, we're able to take care of people with higher acuity. Life pleasures and meaningful life. Our therapeutic recreation department, that's all we do. We're looking for ways to just increase community integration, both the outside community coming in and us going out. Things like horseability program we go to, bringing them to a farm, working with horses. We have the BBU program, a Bristol Better You, where we bring Hofstra University in, and we have lectures and distance learning. So whatever world that the resident, their interests are, we address them. It's all about the residents. Individualized service plans where, you know, what are their needs? You know, what personalized care is paramount. Employees and volunteers, the training that goes into, you know, explaining to them that the resident has brain change going on, but what can they still do? So we want to concentrate on what they can do, not what they can't do. And this is all specialized training, and a lot of it is the common sense. But sometimes people don't realize that. Organization, lifestyles. I think lifestyles, each one of our communities, we're in different areas of New York. And I think each community has their own personality for the people that live in. Usually they move into a community right where they live. So I think a lot of the issues are addressed, you know, and we're always looking to get better. But the personalized care, I think we've come a long way from institutionalized settings to person-centered care and realizing how important it is to take care of that person.
Add anything? Next steps?
Next steps. I mean, I've been really avoiding, you know, the bug in the room. The issue for me is obviously how am I going to finance it? How am I going to build something like this? If money is not an objective, you know, is not a problem, then sure, it's easy. We have, I guess my advice for you, like that there are avenues out there, you know, if you're interested and this is your cause. You know, at Catholic Charities, we address a number of different causes, but if this is something that's your passion, is certainly getting involved in organizations that have similar passions. I mean, we sit and we talk with other financing entities, large banks and institutions, and they're really open to demonstration type projects. But you've got to make the case, you know, and you've got to come up and really put the homework in. And there's, within senior care, you know, within my organization, there are hundreds, you know, of different, tacks that we could take. We just, believe it or not, I just met the Pope, you know, last week, but it was more around providing a dialogue between Buddhists and Catholics to do housing for low-income people with a green component. You know, you've just got to, you know, I met the Pope. You know, if you are interested, you know, make it happen. That would be get involved and find out how you can support that cause. I did meet the Pope. I mean, I got within 5 feet. We talked, you know, but it wasn't like we had dinner together. But yeah.
Did you want to say, Maria?
Yeah. Well, just as a comment to, you know, the Archdiocese, they're the largest real estate holders in New York City, so I'm sure if there's anybody who can do something, it's your organization.
Thanks for the pressure.
But anyway, what I feel as anything that we've ever gotten done in this field of aging and social services and has always been through the collaboration of the community and of different segments of the community. You know, I really feel that it's exciting because in this room we have people who are providers as well as people who serve, who know the consumer, once you start intersecting everybody's needs and seeing what exactly would work in each community, because you've shown us 4 different models, and I'm sure they all have different things, you know, that are pertinent to each community. But once we can get together and work together as a group on getting a model like this running, then you know that's where our success will lie. Now, I don't only mean in the senior or developmental disabilities community. I also think it bears looking at the younger generation. Millennials are the largest portion of the population. They're larger than baby boomers. And what we say this in our advocacy, is that anything that we're doing today for us, for the seniors, is really going to be for the younger generations. And that's what is going to, number one, they should know and they should be interested because it's about their welfare. But that type of working together really shows how this is something for the entire community and not just for one segment.
On that note, I'm going to make an offer to this people here and within the New York State Bar's Housing Committee. We're going to continue this conversation. So if any of you want to join us as stakeholders, please see me before the end of the meeting. Give me your business card or write it down. I'm going to put it in my pocket, and I'm going to call you, and we'll continue. Because I think that this was beginning. I hope I planted some seeds. I got some people thinking. We've exposed ourselves to a wonderful model, but now we have to see how do we really begin to work. Is it changing what exists? Is it regulatory? Is it money? We don't know, but that's what our job is going to be as stakeholders in making this mission happen. So we have to turn ourselves into missionaries. So
Thanks.
Final words? Eloy, final words for us? Inspiration, maybe?
Use your common sense. And I would say just start tomorrow.
Just start.
Just do it.
Do it like Nike.
Yes.
Okay,
And you,
thank you.
and it's absolutely possible because everywhere in the world people are inspired by our model. They develop their own models, they make their own steps. So it is definitely also possible. Take the steps you can take and dream about the whole dementia-friendly society. But for now, we must take some smaller steps where we can oversee, you can overlook, and then we work towards the more dementia-friendly society, including people with severe dementia.
Thank
Start
you.
tomorrow.
Well, start dreaming. Thank you.
And if you need help, contact us. We can discuss further and make it possible.
Yes, thank you.
Don't be too late, otherwise you are the last one in the row. Don't wait too long.
Oh.